Viva la Revolution, said many people in AEW for the 6th annual AEW Revolution PPV. Tonight, we will be discussing that very show. Good day to you all. Good evening, good afternoon, morning, night, whenever or wherever you may be watching this. But if you're joining us live, welcome to BunkaMania Wrestling. I am Jeremy Graves, aka Giraffe Me. I, of course, am joined by Matty Boo, aka The Boo. The Boo. And we will be discussing that very pay-per-view tonight because we have both watched it. We've got some thoughts and feelings. We've not actually discussed it with each other, so it'll be interesting to see what way we stand. If you have got thoughts and feelings and you are watching us, be it live on Twitch or over on YouTube, make your thoughts known in the comments as we go along. And you never know, we may discuss what you've got to say as we go along as well. Matty.
Jeremy.
Welcome on this fine Tuesday, the 11th of March. Dare I ask how you are doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Jeremy, considering I've put frozen veg on my hand due to doing what they call a stage dive onto tarmac on my way out of the dentist today and being in abject pain for the last 6 hours. But other than that, mate, I'm doing great.
There was me thinking you were going to say you did a Spanish fly off of a car or something onto some concrete, but you know.
I did it in front of a captive audience as well. You know, the ones that come rushing up to you and asking you if you're okay. No, that was great. That wasn't at all embarrassing.
There you go. But also, we will say from the outset, good evening to Harriet joining us over on Twitch, and you may find her lurking on YouTube as well. So be nice to Harriet. Have a fun conversation with her if you are joining us in the chat tonight. So before we go any further, quick little bit of housekeeping, which we'll be talking more about at the end of the show, but just to acknowledge it from the outset. Over here on BunkaMania UK, we're going to be doing some live reactions of the upcoming WWE European Tour television shows. It will be kicking off this Friday. I will show you a very fancy screen that our editor-in-chief, our corporate overlord is the wrong word, our overlord, the Decadane, has created. Starting this Friday, 6:45 p.m., that being the 14th of March, there will be a live reaction of WWE SmackDown. Again, quick glimpse of that screen for you there. We will talk about it more at the end of the show, but just wanted to acknowledge it now before we get to the main course, if you will. Because, Matty, I'm going to turn over to you for a second here. Because before we talk about the main show proper, why don't you give us couple of minutes just to very quickly dissect some general thoughts on the pre-show, the 0 hour, because full disclosure, folks, I ain't seen it. Been a bit busy, but I've seen the main show. So, Matty, anything genuinely need to know that happened on that 0 hour?
Well, basically, no.
Cool. Moving on to the main show then.
Okay, we'll run through them. So basically, we had a tag match with Commander and Hologram with Alex Abrahantes, manager to all of the Lucha Libre, who had defeated Lee Johnson and Blake Christian by pinfall. This was basically Ring of Honor 0 hour with no Ring of Honor. We then had Daniel Garcia and the Undisputed Kingdom, that being Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly, who defeated Shane Taylor Promotions, who are the aforementioned Shane Taylor, Carly Bravo, Lee Moriarty, and Captain Sean Dean by submission. This was literally just a little storyline note between Adam Cole and Daniel Garcia to promote their inevitable TNT Championship match down the line.
Shane finally,
Shane Taylor. Shane Taylor is fantastic and basically needs to be shown on television more. But I digress. We then had... I love this match, Jeremy. I love this match so much. It was Big Boom AJ of the Big Boom AJ from the Costco guys on TikTok, don't you know? Who had teamed up with the conglomeration, that being Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe, with his son, Big Justice, and their little friend, the Rizzler, who then defeated Johnny TV and the MXN Collection, the original Maximum Collection, Maximum Male Models. There we go. God, I forgot who they were. Mansoor and Mason Madden, as well as Taya Valkyrie, who showed many, many things. She's very skilled with her face. And we will move on, especially when it involves Johnny TV. That was a really, really fun match, especially when you had fun-loving Orange Cassidy back for the first time in ages.
I can. As soon as I saw much as I still haven't seen any of Big Boom AJ's matches yet, amusingly, by pure coincidence. But as soon as I saw his Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe teaming with him, I just thought that's just going to be a fun match because Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy are great, and you can imagine that both of them, if I can get my words out, would actually work very well with AJ, just as a nice, fun trio. So I'm glad that worked out.
At one point, Jeremy, Big Justice, who is, I believe, a 14-year-old child, did a power bomb from the top turnbuckle. I cannot remember.
Oh, okay, fair dues.
I cannot remember. Literally, basically the way it worked was the guy fell backwards, but it made it look like Big Justice did the move, did the wrestle, and his dad was very proud. I'm being very derogatory, but I actually really enjoyed this match from start to finish. It was a nice warm-up match for the main event, which is, well, not the main event, the main show, which is happening right now. But before we do, Jeremy, can I say, because I've got a feeling you and me have got very strong feelings on this one, because I want to end this show on a high, can we please, can we get the main event out the way now and then build up to a proper finale, as it were?
Okay, sure, but that's on one condition.
What's
we acknowledge a good friend of ours, Fel Floney, as it were, who simply asked the question, is Matty describing a dream he had? I'm totally lost with regard to that pre-show match.
Fel, when I watched this match, it was something like 4:20 in the morning. Everything was a fever dream to me at this point. Everything. I got up stupidly early to try and fit this show in as much of Monday as possible because I had a busy day today. I haven't even watched Raw. I've been that busy. Also, the aforementioned splattage on the pavement I aforementionedly mentioned earlier. I'm sorry. It's the veg, Jeremy. The veg is just running through my veins right now.
Well, you know what else could be running through your veins? The notion of a main event of a pay-per-view. The feeling that the World Championship is on the line, because the show was headlined by Cope, aka Adam Copeland, FKA Edge, taking on Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship. Now, it should be said, the reason we're talking about this match first is mostly because of the way it concluded, I'm assuming. But it is also worth noting it had to follow a lot. And at that point in the show, I think it is fair to say the crowd was just not done, but very much like, right, one more match. Let's get through it kind of thing. It was kind of just that feeling.
So in the after show, you knew that the feedback was particularly bad because Tony Khan said, in retrospect, maybe we shouldn't have put that match on last, but you live and learn. But I really, really wanted the show to end on Swerve Strickland standing on top of that podium. Do you know what could have been a much better ending, Jeremy? The literal words, the end at the end of that women's match. That was a fantastic ending.
We'll get to that. We will get to that. But so this match, just to sort of talk about it in very broad terms, it was much more of a wrestling match, which, considering moments earlier there had been a 29-minute steel cage match where pretty much everything under the sun had happened, and we'll get to it, but it was pretty damn incredible. It had a lot to follow, and they decided to go with a bit more of a wrestling match. And for the most part, it was all right. It's just, it did kind of feel like, all right, what's the thing that's going to happen? Because there was the Wheeler Yuta element from it, of will he come in and defend his, at that point, we assume kind of on the outs with Jon Moxley, friend? Actually, no, not friend, overlord. Or will he actually take the respect that Cope gave him and use it to actually break away from Mox? No, he defended Mox. But I will say, when it was getting to the nitty-gritty of things, and I think Copeland hit a couple of spears, and there was that genuine feeling of, oh, we might actually see something happening, like something is brewing here. And he hit a couple of spears, if memory serves, and then it was a 1, 2, and then I think it was the ref that got pulled out the ring. There was a hooded hoodlum. We couldn't see who it was. They took the hood off. It was Christian Cage with the contract that he could redeem to have a title match anytime, anywhere he wanted. He chose that very moment. He got in the ring. He hit a spear. The match was officially now a 3-way. He hit the spear. He only got a 2 count. And I must say, and I don't know what your full opinion of this is, Matty, so I might be about to blow your mind a little bit. I actually really like the way this ultimately played out, because Christian hit the spear, only got a 2, tried to go for another one, went for another one, got a pinfall. Then Moxley just comes in and starts choking him around the neck, and he can't reach him. And there's this wonderful visual where Christian is trying to reach over to cope, and he just gets a fingertip on his chest to try and initiate the pinfall. And there was a split second where I thought, please change the championship this way, because people will hate it so much, and I will genuinely laugh. Ultimately, he didn't. He got pulled away, and he was choked out. So Jon Moxley retains. Christian Cage was the one that lost the match. Copeland never got defeated. We'll get to the post-match in a few moments' time, but honestly, the final 5 minutes was what everyone was just waiting for. Like, how was this thing going to wrap up? And I actually kind of liked it. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. Has it arguably wasted the cash-in by Christian Cage? Perhaps. Depends how you look at it. But I actually liked the way this played out. But in the context of this show, I don't think this was the right show to do it on, is what I would say to you.
Yes. I'm full agreement with you. The match was just fine. I will say this right now. The match was just fine. Granted, by the time I got to this, it was about 7:30, and I have been watching the show like in bits throughout the day. I started watching the show at 4:00 in the morning, and I was exhausted.
The sun had risen.
I was literally exhausted, and it followed three, arguably 4, but 3 heavy hitting like match of the year contenders. Like, literally, I'm not even lying. There's one after the other were actually banger after banger. It got to the point where I actually forgot what followed what due to the like sheer like spectacle. But the problem with this match being, and my whole problem with AEW pay-per-views in general, is match placement. We had this discussion before. This shouldn't have been the main event. I'm sorry. It really shouldn't have. You could make it a very good opener. You could make it a midpoint. But then you have the problem with it being a world heavyweight championship match. So I would have argued, make this the start. And then that would set up for when Swerve then became number 1 contender. And then you would have the stare off. But
sorry, so to clarify, you mean having Swerve and Ricochet main event then?
Yes. No. This is why in my brain I'm going into what Tony Khan wanted, and he wanted the final visual of the show being Swerve facing off. But the match in itself, like I said, it was the wrong match to put at the end, because you got to leave the audience on a high. And I don't think this match was it. And the audience were pretty much, I would assume, were in the same state I was in, saying, we just had a fantastic card, like an exhaustive card, watching this going on. And then we just basically had this. And there's nothing that Cope did was particularly wrong. There's nothing that Mox did that was particularly wrong. Everybody was just fine. But this is an AEW pay-per-view. This is AEW Revolution. It has set the bar for itself over the last few years now as being literally the show ender. I'm going to make a strong argument that when you talk about breaking like a wrestling season into little pods, there's that time between like end of last year up to now where your storylines just end and you set up for the next load of storylines. And I think it's fair to say that Revolution is very good at doing that. But ultimately, you look back and you take a big step back and you look at those matches and you could say, I could have put I could have put Swerve and Ricochet on last. I could have put, very strongly, would have put Mariah May and Toni Storm on last, because I hate hardcore wrestling to that excessive amounts, but I still liked it. And we will get to that. That literally felt like a show ender. Mariah May and Toni Storm felt like a show ender. It literally ended with the Titantron saying the end. Imagine ending a pay-per-view on that. That would have been incredible. But no, you're leaving the audience with, I'm going to say this, a match that was just fine. And not only that, it was a show that served two masters. They had a storyline that went nowhere, which was Christian and his contract. This was the way to take that off him and just effectively end that. And it also served another master of, oh crap, we kind of want to have someone else face Mox. We're on a holding pattern for this guy to step up. So he's just having this program with Cope at the moment, or Ledge, as I like to call him. Let's keep Ledge looking strong by having his little kayfabe brother lose it instead, out of nowhere. And it kind of left me feeling a bit cold. Hardcore wrestling is, as I presume, where if you lose the match, is a permadeath and you have to roll a new persona. Yes. In this case, the role of Daniel Bryan will be played by Kyle Fletcher. Anyway,
and we will come back to that, Felth. There was a reason I brought that up on screen. We will come back to this point about the hardcore stuff, believe me. But I hear what you're saying, Matty. I mean, I honestly don't know what the online discourse has been about this, because I don't pay attention to it much now. It's just I watch the show, I like to talk about it, I take my opinion for what it is, I carry on watching it if I want to and such. And honestly, I get the old adage of the world title match going on last, but you could argue in this pay-per-view alone, the steel cage match was arguably a feud ender. You've got the Hollywood ending, which was a feud ender. I mean, just looking up and down the card, I mean, heck, like you say, Ricochet and Swerve, there was an element of what's next about it. Like, there was elements of other things you could have thrown in there to make it be last on something else, be last on the show. Sorry, losing my words a little bit. But ultimately, I do get the thing of, well, arguably the two biggest stars in AEW or in wrestling main eventing the show. I totally understand why it went on last, but in this circumstance, with what it had to follow, that's the key difference maker here.
I would say it would have been an all right match if it wasn't the main event. I will stick to my guns on that one. It was just fine. So I would have put that like on the start, then have the setup of Swerve later, or even have it like in the middle and have like Swerve and Ricochet first. I think what we had as an opener was incredible. I will state that right away.
No, that's cool. So what we'll do, because we're sort of starting to talk about the show as a whole, so let's quickly talk about the post-match of the main event, then we'll sort of circle back and talk about the show as a whole. So after the match, Jon Moxley is leaving ringside. Cope is out for the count, probably not knowing what's happened. Christian is just more than knocked out and such. Jon Moxley goes back through the crowd. He's having a bit of a laugh. He's kind of acknowledging people, as it were, not in a Roman Reigns sense, who are like, yeah, Mox, you won. Thank God you won. And probably also having fun with the people going, can you just bloody lose? And then he sort of goes back to like the part of the arena where he walks out from. And then Prince Nana, Swerve Strickland's manager, if you will, appeared and started kind of going, number one, do you know who the number one contender is? Do you? Kind of thing. And then the camera pans back, much like I did just then. And it then kind of looks up a little bit, and you see up on like one of the balcony bits, someone's kind of perched like they're Batman about to jump off a building. And it's Swerve, who then does a giant double foot stomp onto a crowd of security and Jon Moxley. And the show goes off the air with Swerve's music playing and basically everyone going, who is next? Swerve's next, kind of thing. It was actually a really fun ending, and it also sets up the I say the theory, but in my brain anyway, of Swerve won the title last year at Dynasty, or Dynasty, however you want to pronounce it, at the April show, and now will he do it again? If anyone could do it, but if you have to compare Copeland to Swerve, I think Swerve is far more credible, mostly on recency bias of what they have done in AEW.
Yeah, it's been
let
incredible.
alone talent. Like that's unmistakable. I'm not even questioning that.
He Felf is on fire right now. They've just said he won the title at Dynasty, but who will win at Dallas? Hey, what about Peyton Place and Peyton? Is it Peyton Place or Melrose Place? Melrose Place.
I love the way you're looking at me, hoping I can give you an answer to that.
Who will win at El Dorado? That's the big question. Anyway,
the post match, Matty. What did you think?
Oh, the post match. That's fine. Did its job. Absolutely set up who the next contender will be, and I hope he wins it because I'm ready for Mox to lose that title. Quite frankly, I'm going to say this is a little mini rant. I don't think the Death Riders thing has been working out the way we all hoped it would be, and it's just been Mox retains the title. We don't ever see the title. We don't actually know what the point of the Death Riders actually is anymore, other than Mox is a bit ranty and he's got some friends. We all of the menace and all of the what does this mean? That seems to have gone by the wayside, and instead we just have this, and it's just been sort of like I have this problem with heel champions anyway, where it's always they will retain because their friends get involved, and this has been Mox to a T now for the last several months. It started with a lovely amount of promise, and I just think it's petered out. So I'm just ready for whatever is next now. And if that's Swerve Strickland, I ain't going to be mad about it. I do think Tony Khan's been in a bit of a holding pattern waiting for Darby Allin to come back, which sucks.
I would agree and disagree, only because AEW television as a whole, for the better part of 2-3 months now, has been, well, in fact, probably going back to like around November-ish time, has been really freaking great. Like week to week, there's maybe like a show or two that was like, oh, okay, that wasn't as great as the past ones. But on the whole, it's been really freaking great. So I think he's done incredibly well with the way he has done the shows. But I do agree, what is Jon Moxley as an all-encompassing question? There does need to kind of almost be a bit of an evolution. I'm going to use a football analogy. It's like Arsenal Football Club, the team I support. We've got a really good team, but currently, with the amount of people injured, we're at a point where how do the team keep going? What's the next thing to help the team keep pushing forward? And we're at a point now where what's the next thing for Moxley? Because hypothetically, if all the other Death Riders have been taken out, are they taken out for a while? Or is it just going to be Moxley now? Like, is he going to run solo? Because an unhinged solo Moxley could be quite good fun again, but we have no idea.
I would love an unhinged Moxley again. He's at his best when he's an absolute psychopath. Also, an absolute psychopath that cuts nice, quiet promos because he's forgotten how to do those again. You know, he was very, very cool when he was having nice, quiet ones, and you could see that he could absolutely mess you up. But now he's just like ranty and shouty, and it's like, I'm not quite as interested in your promos as a consequence, mate. You're just an angry man at the end of the day. And it's like, but you were so interesting 6 months ago. But hey,
but there we go. So that was how sort of the show concluded, as it were. Given our thoughts, we've got a bit of a difference of opinion there, but that's not a bad thing. It's just the way way we had it, as it were. So I guess from there, let's talk about the show as a whole, Matty. Just kind of a few sentences each as to what we thought. So this pay-per-view as a whole, Revolution traditionally has been easily one of the best shows of the year for AEW. That there is match of the year contenders up and down the card like it's no one's business. It's progressed things like you alluded to earlier in some discussion. Always a strong show. I think this one was another very strong show, but I don't think... What's the way to phrase this so I'm trying to put across how I want it to? I really enjoyed the show, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as last year looking back on it, even though I enjoyed so much of it. If that makes sense.
I agree with you. I think I loved last year's show more. I think what we had this year was they went in hard and maybe probably a little too hard, because it was like we had Mariah May and Toni Storm, and holy Christ, they were brutal. We'll talk about that match later. But then 2 matches down the line, it's like, Kyle Fletcher and Real Ospreay saw that match and went, oh God, we need to try and outdo this. And they tried to go even harder than the two ladies that tried to do type A blinking glass fists, with the limitations of what they had, which was fun tacks and the baseball bat and all of that. But it's like the work rate, as always, in these AEW shows, absolutely outstanding. There was a point where I went, guys, you can actually dial it back a little bit and we'll still love you. And I get that feeling overall. I will say work rate rise to Takeshita and Kenny Omega. I'll just say that. Not the best this match, but still very serviceable.
Oh, yeah. We will touch on sort of probably match by match as we go, because I think it is going to be interesting to see how we both took this, especially given, like you said, you were kind of watching it in the early hours of Monday. I sort of watched majority last night into like during this morning a little bit as well. So I think that also plays into it, because also the thing to factor in from the fans in the building point of view, they were in there for a good 5+ hours, I think it was in the end.
And I mean, nothing more. I mean, let's look at the opening here, because we started with Hangman Adam Page and MJF.
Freaking great!
It was bloody good, wasn't it? One thing I would love, they told a story. They told a story with Hangman, and it was he came out the heel tunnel, and it was like back to being full on big old angry watered. His hair's slicked back, Hangman, which, by the way, he cut his hair. Don't do that again. Let that grow out. You'd look weird with your sort of half afro. But as the match progressed, we started seeing more and more of the old Hangman that used to connect with the audience. Like, he'll literally like hype up the crowd, say, "Come on, be by my side." I've just knocked a whole load of stuff.
That's fine. You deal with that. But I'll add to that in saying that he's been doing that little by little in recent weeks as well. So it's been a gradual build up to this.
And there was a physical part of that as well, because as the match wore on, his hair started drying and started to have that sort of like old, dry, curly look to him that he used to have. Like, he didn't used to dunk his hair in a bucket of water. He used to let that thing, like, he used to be like a L'Oreal advert, his hair. And it was like, oh, man, I could bathe in that hair. But that's enough about my kinks. But it dried out. And it seemed like as he was getting more and more like the old Hangman, like physically as well as psychologically, the old Hangman was starting to like rise up into the surface. The only thing that this would have made this chef's kiss is if he decided to go into the baby face tunnel at the end, which he did not, which means, and he's perfect for this. Hangman has always been incredible for this. Hits a state of mind to him, whether he's a heel or a baby face. When he turned, he was still coming out of the babyface tunnel for a little bit during his feuds with Swerve, because he considered himself a babyface, even though everyone turned against him and he was getting angrier and angrier. He still considered himself a babyface, so he came out of the babyface tunnel until he realized, no, I'm not this guy anymore. I'm proper evil, and he went to the heel tunnel finally. And then we had the thing with Christopher Daniels, and we started seeing things rise up into the surface. So right now, because subconsciously Hangman has still got some residual guilt flying around about, look what wrestling made me do. Look what it's turned me into. I am literally the most deadliest man alive. He still considers himself a heel, and he's going into that heel tunnel. I really wish this was the match where he decided, no, I'm the old Hangman again. I'm going to go out the babyface tunnel. That would have made this perfect.
I feel like this was the turning point for that.
Yeah.
Because admittedly, he did nearly, by all accounts, just break MJF's face into the mat when he did it. But he did use Christopher Daniels' Angel's Wings signature move. And I don't recall him ever doing that before, or maybe a long time ago. But that was a difference of element. Also, MJF basically having a breakdown as well, when he's just like, why was it you and not me who was the one accepted by everyone? It was just really, really good stuff. Yeah,
you're a dick.
Like, the way you behave, you're a dick. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. And as an opener, it was just like, yeah, we're in for a good ride here. This will kind of set the tone and the pace for the pay-per-view. But arguably, I would say it set an expectation for the pay-per-view. But I'm not sure if the match ordering lent itself well ultimately. Which I know is something we've already mentioned. And maybe we'll come back to that as like a final closing point once we talked about the show as a whole. But next up on the show, after we should say Hangman won, in case we didn't actually say that.
Yeah, he did. He won big time. Also, if you see me sniggering, I'm literally looking at Phelps jokes in the chat, and it's like every now and again I'm looking up, and they've teed up another thing, and it's just like they are on form tonight, and I adore it. But
Indeed,
yes,
they are. But yeah, so the reason I sort of bring that into question is because the next match was for the TBS title. And I would argue from a build-up perspective going into this was almost the polar opposite. In the build-up was essentially Momo Watanabe won the four-way match at the Tokyo Dome show, which AEW seemingly weren't allowed to promote on television very much. Ironically, though, it was the one match they did promote of all of them. It was the one match they did. And then that meant that Momo could challenge any of the champions of the respective promotions for a title match. And Momo Watanabe chose the TBS title to challenge Mercedes Moné. And leading up to this, we'd basically seen a couple of appearances by Momo Watanabe, one in Australia, a couple of Dynamite appearances and backstage things, Billy Starks randomly being involved, which that seems like that's going to be a slow burn to whatever that's going to be building up to. And that led to this match. And after Hangman and an MJF, I think it's fair to say there was a portion of the crowd who probably knew what to expect, but a decent portion of the crowd who were like, okay, let's see what we're in for. I'm up for this. Because Mercedes pay-per-view matches are great. Like, go back and look at our reviews. They're freaking great. And I think it took a while, but there was a moment in this match. I think it was when something happened on the apron. I can't remember exactly, but Momo did something to Moné on the apron. And at that moment, the crowd were like, all right, well up for this. Let's do this. And that was before Momo kicked Mercedes like in the throat/chin area with that kick that sounded like it had just hit a brick wall. It was brutal. And ultimately, Mercedes was able to get the win, but Momo was dominating for a decent amount towards the end. But then I believe came off the top rope, did a roll through, and then started to favor her ankle, which gave Mercedes the opportunity to hit the moneymaker, apply the now former bank statement submission, whatever she calls it now, and ultimately get the win. I enjoyed this match, but in terms of it having to follow Hangman and MJF, it did almost kind of feel like a weird change of pace. It's hard to articulate exactly what I mean. I still liked it, like I say, but what did you think, Matty? And do you agree with my thinking there?
I'm in full agreement with you. The problem is, where would you fit this sort of match, really? Because
exactly,
this is it. This is another thing with like the nature of trying to where to place all of these matches, and like I loved it. We did have a build up. Unfortunately, most of the build up really wasn't on AEW programming. A lot of it was done by our friends in Japan, because we watched that Wrestle Dynasty show, Jeremy.
Heck, Momo wrestled the night before, on the show that aired the night before on Collision. Yeah. That was her only win in AEW to that point, and the only exposure that potentially a bunch of fans had to her.
It's, I think I said this the last time we did an AEW review. When you think about it, Mercedes Moné is a very giving competitor. In any of her matches. I think the only outlier we have had in her entire All Elite career so far has been Britt Baker, and I hate to say that, but it absolutely is. Every match Moné has had since then have all been bangers, like the Statlander matches, the Willow Nightingale stuff. She is a huge...
The one in Australia with Harley, you know?
Yeah, she's a huge mark for Lucha Libre and Joshi Wrestling. And it proves it. Like, this match proved that. It absolutely sickens me, Jeremy, that Momo Watanabe is only 24 years old. It sickens me that she's got that much talent. She's only turning 25 later in the month. And she's got a hell of a future ahead of her. The only problem is, where she works, most of their talent tend to retire very early. And I really hope not in this case. because she's got the stuff. I love Momo.
But it's like I said, though, come the end of the match, you left that match thinking, damn, that was a battle. That was good fun. But it did take a while to get there, which was an interesting dynamic, but still really enjoyed it. Also, I don't know how much of the report is true, but that kick that I mentioned, seemingly Mercedes has got like a bruised larynx, I think it is.
Apparently, quite a few of the talent got dinged up massively during the show. Quite a few of them are pretty beat up, but
you could have fooled me, Matty. You could have fooled me.
I mean, at what point during these matches do you think they got hurt, Jeremy? But yeah, I heard somewhere that I heard from another show that they used this as a reason. A Mercedes Moné match can only get better for her the longer it goes on for. It's like she's a slow build wrestler. Like, if you have a short Mercedes match, it's not as good. If you have one that goes on, it gives her a chance to breathe. And it's like her powers ultimately build up over time. And then you get like a 4 or 5 star match.
More like an endurance athlete, to use another sort of analogy.
Yeah. So it's like she's built for long matches, which is great so long as you have an opponent that can easily go and give us that big quality match. Because I'm going to say it again, I'm so sorry. If it's like a Britt Baker, that'd be painful.
Yeah, I mean, this is perhaps a conversation for a different show, but at some point, I've not actually seen either all-ins from London on TV. I don't know why, I haven't. But at some point, it would be interesting just to kind of go back and watch the Mercedes matches from 2024, the pay-per-view ones, and almost do like a ranking system of them.
I mean, I did watch it televised, and it wasn't good, yeah.
Hey, look, Harriet's in the chat. We were there. We literally saw the amount of people that went, right, now I've got to take a break. Like, that was unfortunately the match that was chosen because of how these shows go. But again, perhaps a debate for another day on that.
And to prove your point, I mean, this is the match that was slotted between Hangman Adam Page and MGF, and then Swerve Strickland and King Ricochet.
Well, you know what, Matty? Seeing as you mentioned it, why don't you take the lead on this? What did you think of Swerve and Ricochet?
The King is back, everybody. And when I say the King, I mean, it took a king to try and dethrone a prince, and the prince bit back. But yes, I'm a fan of Ricochet, the bugger. You know, when he was a bad guy in New Japan, he was really, really good at it, and he's like gone up to a whole new level in his AEW run. I hope this doesn't diminish him after the loss. I hope we have depending on who the opponents are, because I do want Ricochet and Swerve to go their separate ways for a bit now. Whoever they put up against Ricochet now has got to be good. I mean, give us evil psychopath Ricochet versus Ospreay. Like pure babyface Ospreay.
There's so many directions they could go in. Literally.
Yeah, absolutely. Swerve. Some people said that Swerve lost his way a little bit. I disagree. I absolutely disagree. I think Swerve has always been great. It's just how you book him. And if this is true, and we're hopefully going to see him be World Heavyweight Champion again, would you like to see him go back to being like the Dangerous Man alive? Or would you like to see him continue on this babyface path he's been on as of late?
Well, don't forget, part of the story was what you just said. Like, Nana said it in recent weeks. It's like, look, I can't remember the exact words, but it's something to the effect of like, look, boss, the stuff with the Hurt Syndicate, Hangman, after you lost the title, your focus changed. And it wasn't the title. Like, we need to get back to the old Swerve, the one going for the title. That's what this Ricochet feud was ultimately going to lead to, let alone just be fantastic television pretty much every week. And this match was such good fun.
Absolutely.
Admittedly, this is another instance where someone nearly perished because Swerve had like a DVD on the concrete outside, I think, at one point. When like a dive kind of went a bit AWOL. But these two have just got such good chemistry in the ring. We saw it on the Dynamite match about a month or so ago now. They've just got such good chemistry, such good timing. Ricochet's, to be quite frank, utter punchable in the face dick character is so good. It's just perfect. Literally, just everything about it. It just keeps adding something and just keeps escalating it. And obviously, another big element. Well, actually, this is something we should touch on because I do fear for this. Swerve ultimately got the win, a much deserved win. It was so good. But a thing that they've kind of teased in the last couple of weeks was Prince Nana kind of almost giving an ultimatum to Swerve. That being him almost going, boss, if you don't win this match and get the robe back, because the robe that he had anointed the crown jewel of his embassy with and has so much history in wrestling, and if you know your sort of indie wrestling history, it's the robe that Jimmy Rave had for loads of years, the late Jimmy Rave. So there's a lot of genuine emotion involved in that. And Ricochet had taken it and seemingly was going to bling it up a little bit, which we might touch on that. But ultimately, he said, if you don't win this and you don't become number one contender and don't get this robe back, I don't think I could do this anymore. And it was kind of a mic drop moment. And that first thing of, you can't break this duo up. You can't. No. And then the next part was during the match itself, when Swerve was just hammering on Ricochet on the outside. And then he sort of got a bit too overzealous. Probably thought it was just the referee trying to stop him. And then in the end, shoved Nana out the way. And then Nana, literally, because I heard it on the Triller feed, just went, the fuck? Like, fuck you. And just went away and left.
Yeah.
And then obviously came back later. Everything was renewed. Wonderful energy about it. Got the win. Swerve got on one knee and presented the robe back to Nana. And it was a genuine, really feel-good moment. So damn good. But there is that element now of, is this just going to be like a little keep it cozy red herring thing? And if Swerve doesn't win, is Nana going to turn?
I'll be honest with you, Jeremy. I thought Nana was going to betray Swerve in the storyline. I thought he was going to move over to Ricochet. It's where I thought this was going. And the fact that it didn't absolutely surprised me. I'm glad that the two of them are still together because I think that Prince Nana is a very big part of Swerve Strickland's act. And I think it would be incredibly foolish to remove Nana at this point. But having said that, where the hell is Stokely Hathaway? Just that's a mini rant for another time.
That's another in the compendium of in the continuity of AEW, the multiverse, if you will. Stokely is somewhere. You know.
Stokely disappeared in a massive retcon. Anyway, we know comics.
But this match though was so damn good.
Yes, absolutely. I fully agree. And hopefully, I still say it, I want Swerve to be champion again. He was a great, great champion. Unfortunately, his reign came at a time where Bryan Danielson.
We know who you mean. That's all good.
Yeah, had a hell of a run, and the only way was for him to have that championship. But to have Swerve become champion again and make that belt mean something again, because I'm sorry, Mox has... This Steph Rider storyline has devalued that championship, and we need the championship back, quite frankly.
So, if I may, and we'll deviate discussion for a second here, actually, I think, because I think it is relevant. Who at this point should dethrone Moxley? And the reason I mention this is because if you look at, and this is jumping forward a little bit, but you look at how this show panned out ultimately, we've got Swerve, more than great contender. You've arguably got Hangman because there's still history with him and Moxley, and it would make total sense for him to be the one to rescue AEW from the wrath of Moxley. There's still the question of Darby Allin, which they did show him in part of the video package for the main event of him getting pushed down the stairs outside of the final Rampage at Hammerstein. There are other people kind of sort of lurking still, who I'm probably just drawing a blank off the top of my head. But right now, Swerve is more than credible. Hangman's more than credible. I'm still maintaining, like I said in the predictions at the beginning of the year when we did that prediction show, I'm still going with Darby. But if it was Swerve or Hangman, I have zero issue with that. That said, I'll throw a little quick wrinkle prediction here. Hangman sees that Swerve's going to challenge for the title again.
Oh.
Just saying. But I digress. Matty, who do you think will dethrone him at this point?
I think at this point, if you're in the trajectory of turning Hangman back to being like babyface Hangman, I think it's fair to say that rivalry between him and Swerve is probably going to deviate a little bit now. I would love for the Death Rider storyline to end how it was meant to go. Moxley was talking about, right, all of these young talent all around this company that do absolutely jack. We're going to be educators. We're going to make you better by beating the crap out of you, just like we did Wheeler Yuta, just like we did everybody else. Until one of you stands up against us and give us an actual challenge. So I would love for one of the younger talent, like a Darby Allin, oh God, I couldn't even think. At the moment, I think Daniel Garcia is a...
Daniel Garcia is an interesting one. I think there's still a lot more for him to do with the TNT title. I think him and Adam Cole is a good way to keep Daniel Garcia building up. There's something there, but I'm not sure he would be the right person at this time.
I'd say that full poetic license, it has to be one of the younger talent that ultimately defeats Moxley. Now, whether that's for a championship or not is left to be decided. But I think the ultimate ending of this storyline has to be one of the young talent. Hell, make it Wheeler Yuta. If you're going to do something with Wheeler Yuta, make Wheeler be the one to do... actually freaking do something with Wheeler Yuta that isn't just Moxley's bitch.
Hey, he grew his hair out.
All I'm saying is, ultimately, Moxley should be kicked, like literally humbled by one of this young talent that he says is stagnating. And I think that's where it goes. As for the championship, I think that Swerve is a very strong contender on that one. You've literally listed a whole bunch of people that I would love to see at the top. Hell, Kyle Fletcher. That's another one. Yep. I'm going to throw him there now. I think he's more than proved his worth now.
I mean, heck, you mentioned him earlier as well, Ospreay. Where does Ospreay go after this? I mean, we'll get to the international title because arguably that provides some other elements of people being able to potentially be elevated. No Ospreay lyric, pun intended there. But there's loads of directions you can go with this. But yeah, the world title picture I think could be good fun. And we won't sort of talk about the Mox stuff too much. We've already dedicated a lot of time to the Mox bits. But there is a question of what next for the Death Riders as a whole. Are we going to see them again for a while? Does Moxley recruit other people to come into the Death Rider fold while the core crew are laid out from numerous concertos? We'll see.
I mean, he's still champion, so we're going to have more Moxley. I would love... The problem is, Jeremy, we had an entire storyline based around Ospreay not wanting to do the Tiger Driver because it would literally destroy a person's career. He did it to MJF, and MJF was back up and walking around literally 3 days later. So I don't think that AEW knows how to put people on the shelf. In kayfabe, I will say they're very good at putting people on the shelf for realsies.
I mean, Matty, I would come back and say Maxwell Jacob Friedman had probably a 10 to 12 hour flight from the UK to recover. And when you're in an air pressurized tube that is an airplane, that somehow helps with compression in a reverse way and totally doesn't cause deep vein thrombosis. It does the reverse to Maxwell, in that it heals him like an evangelical person. Healed was Maxwell Jacob Friedman. I couldn't even get his name right. There you go.
MJF, it's so much easier.
That should be his next catchphrase. But from there, so we can get back onto the show. Next up was the Continental Championship match between Brody King and Kazuchika Okada. I enjoyed this match. Totally fine. Good fun. Brody King's chops were very amusingly brutal, especially when Okada was determined to not try and take them properly by the look of it. Thus, his biceps started bleeding and getting cut up instead as well. That was mildly amusing.
That his muscles was like the Chosen One's neck. at that one scene. Felf is here, so I know they're going to get a kick out of this. Where they're going, "Arr!" And then suddenly they bust a blood vessel, and this string of arcing blood comes out of his neck. That was his muscles. Yeah, absolutely great. I think we're talking about a match that has Brody King and Okada in it. We're talking about Okada, and I think this was one of probably the lower end of the card. I think that's safe to say, and still, this did what it did, and
Great
I
fun.
really enjoyed
Just a
it.
good fun match.
Yeah.
Literally.
It was a great little filler match because I think it's safe to say I don't think you and me were really expecting Brody King to win this. I will stress this championship because I think that is pretty much going to be Okada's prop now until they finally merge those two belts. I think.
Is that the rumor? I've not heard about that.
The rumor is that they're thinking of merging together the Continental Crown with the International Championships.
Makes total sense, and given the results of this show, it ultimately makes more sense.
Oh, it does. Call it the Intercontinental Champion, you cowards! I dare you! I dare you!
Hang on, wait! What could they? The Continental Championship.
Oh. That does sound like something else.
Oh, no, even better. The Continental Championship. There you go.
That just sounds rude if you say it too quickly, Jeremy.
I bet you that's what they call it. But yeah, this match was just really good fun, though. Like, genuinely, really, really good fun. Was Brody King going to win? No. You've just said it, Matty. He wasn't. But it was a really good showcase for what Brody could do. And against someone like Okada as well, who... We haven't seen, I think, the best Okada match we had, I still think, of the last probably 6 months was the one with Ospreay in the Continental final, which admittedly they'd already both wrestled once that night, but that match was just like, that was like New Japan level Okada.
I was going to say, we've seen this match, Jeremy. We've seen this match a few times.
But yeah, honestly, I appreciate I'm not adding much more to the discussion on this match. There isn't much more to say. Just good fun. If you want a fun, simple match to kill a few minutes, as it were, definitely go out your way to watch it.
Strap a rocket to Brody King. Give him all of the flowers because that is a fantastic talent you should totally and utterly utilize down the line. Tony Khan, I know you're watching because you're a big money mark for this sort of stuff. Yeah, Brody King, all of the accolades. Give him 5 belts. Create a new belt just to give to Brody King, please.
The Hell Belt. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, the dog pound belt or something. But yeah, I really hope that this year will be the year of Brody King because that guy is amazing.
Him and Buddy, give him the tag belts. And the reason I mention that is because the next match was the tag title match, which, if I'm going to be polite, Matty, this was a bit naff.
This was a bit shit. What was it doing on our Revolution? No. Why? Look, right. I think that this whole Outrunners thing is ridiculous. I think the best part I don't like the Outrunners.
Hang on, I'm going to sit back and take a swig of drink. So go on, Matty. I'll give you a minute and a half starting now.
I'm going to say it. The best part of their act seemed to have been disappeared several months ago. Where's their valet gone? She was so shit. I loved her. I really loved her. I love that she had the half-assed face when she entered the ring. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I guess I'm part of the act. Gah. And then she disappeared, and I'm sad. And I wanted to see this act as a nice little, like, just... There are some acts that are there to be entertaining during, like, a show on TV. The Outrunners is that. The Outrunners is 100% that. I love them for that. Them as serious contenders for the tag team championships currently held by 2 mass murderers. They literally kill people, Jeremy. You ever think...
Those are the words of the Boo, Matty Boo, and do not reflect those of anyone else in BunkaMania UK.
They kill people.
They hurt people, Matty. They hurt. It's in the damn lyrics. They hurt people.
All right, mass maimers then. But I never had even an inkling that they ever were going to win. And I think this was the best Outrunners match but that's giving it a lot of weight that it probably doesn't need. I think the time has come for just hang with me, right, Jeremy? We were queuing up for a storyline where the Hurt Syndicate were going to face off against the Murder Machine. Why wasn't this match against them and the Murder Machine?
Because they're going to do it in Philadelphia at the next pay-per-view.
Are they, though?
I bet.
This is it. Are they, though? Are they just going to do another squash match with another tag team that they've just pulled out of, like, I don't know, Ring of Honor or some other blinking 1 hour show? I don't know, Jeremy. I don't know.
The thing is, though, Matty, what you need to remember is that what you need to remember is as soon as the Hurt Syndicate interrupted the number one contender match where the Outrunners won, it was like, okay, we're coming back to the Murder Machines type thing.
We really should, because that would be a great hoss fight.
Absolutely. My other question mainly is with the Outrunners. I think like there was a period where I didn't see a lot of them because I wasn't watching Collision for a while, so I kind of missed a lot of the build up. But they were really, really hot, for want of better phrasing, and it just kind of seems like the blooms off the rose a little bit. And I partly think it's down to their entrance music having changed as well, because I don't like the new entrance music. But also, what happened to the thing involving them and FTR? For a while, they were teaming with FTR. FTR are now seemingly going to be turning imminently after they weren't too happy that sportsmanship led to them losing a match of their own making, I should add. So, there's potentially a way to revive them with that, but I think that Outrunners do need a little bit more of a fresh coat of paint. Maybe instead of being in the 80s, they should aim for the early 90s.
The problem is that some of their
Absolutely not, by the way. Stick with the 80s.
Some of their act does feel a little 90s, though. That's the thing, because they got very, like, WWF, like, new generation style tights.
I was going to say 94, 95 was a joke, and you flipping said that era. Like, okay, fair.
Yeah. No, that's what they feel more like to me. But then their whole other act is more like the 80s. But even then, like in 1995, I had videotapes that had that blinking like wibble wobble to it. I was buying anime that had blinking distortion on it.
You got to do the tracking on that VCR, Matty. Yeah. But okay, put it this way. I'm going to call it now. If the Outrunners go through a grunge phase, I'm blaming you.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, do it, you cowards. Oh, please do it. Mate, do you know what? Do you know how they changed like Crush into like from
Disciple
Caribbean Crush
to
Disciple of Apocalypse Crush? Do that with the Outrunners. Do it. Double dare you. Give them their Attitude Era.
God. And then
turn them into Chronic.
And they'll come to like the present day and they'll have to cycle back to the 80s because it's the in thing.
And give them their shit ballet again because I miss her. But don't change her. Make her blatantly the big blinking neon coloured like monstrosity that she was with the big frizzy hair. But I'm just saying, just bring back the valet. She was so shit. She was great. But have them go through their goth phase, and then she's still a neon nightmare.
But as for the match itself, because I appreciate we kind of glossed over it, the Outrunners had a couple of moments, and a bit of the story of the match was clearly the Hurt Syndicate just not taking them seriously, to the point where MVP was getting them on the outside and basically going, "The heck you two doing? Look at them! Destroy them!" I appreciate it sounded more Heyman than MVP, but you know what I mean? He basically said, "Can we just get to the bar?" Effectively is what he was saying. Like, why are we still here? Then they hurt them. Not murdered, hurt them.
It was Paul Heyman as though he was some kind of posh Londoner. But yeah, no. That's a really good part of their act is basically MVP. Yeah, he's definitely the motivator. He is a guy that you could tell that if they F up, he's totally like smacking them in the face behind the scenes. You know,
he did it with Shelton in the Continental Classic.
Exactly. And if the rumors are true, eventually we're going to have a Cedric Alexander as well. So
again, because I'm not online that much now, as it were, I don't see these rumors. So I'm like, ooh.
It's been a fightful report that basically the Hurt Syndicate have been really pushing to have Cedric tied to a contract when his no compete lapses up, which is pretty soon now. So we can only see. I think Cedric Alexander is a hell of a talent, and he's just like a lot of these people has been sorely wasted. So hopefully he'll be a very good act if he joins the Hurt Syndicate as well. There was a guy earlier sounded like an English village, apparently, according to Felf.
How do I make that go into the next match? So we go from the tag title match, and then we go to the serene location of Australia versus an English village in the Hollywood ending. God, that was tough, but I got there. So we now had a Falls Count Anywhere match, effectively billed as the Hollywood ending, with Timeless Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Mariah May. Now, I want to say from the outset, this was effing wild, and it was so damn great. It is one of the most brutal matches, not even going to genderize this, just brutal matches you will ever see in AEW. And this is going to sound really weird, but I actually mean this as a compliment. It felt short at the time of watching. I thought, damn, that felt really quick, and I wonder how long it was. And when I looked at the time, it's like, oh, it was, and it felt perfect. It was about 13 minutes, give or take, and it pretty much did everything it needed to. It was brutal. It was utter carnage. It was a visual feast, whether it would make you sick or delighted. There was all sorts going on. There was a freaking champagne bottle shot to Toni Storm's vagina at one point. Not even making that up. That's actually what happened. And you know what? This match was freaking wild.
I was going to mention that and be nicer than I was for the Statlander match, and then you just come up with there was a champagne bottle straight to the vagina. It's like, hey everybody, Jeremy's chosen violence tonight.
I mean, look, Harriet says in the chat, Jeremy, language. I would argue correct use language. I get you, Harriet. It's all good.
It's yeah. I said this earlier on in the show, and I will maintain I'm not a huge fan of bloodbaths in general. I think that you could do a very good work rate match without needing to literally paint the canvas with your blood. And we get this twice in this show. And yet, I'm now going to be a massive hypocrite because I enjoyed this match as well. I thought it was incredibly good. Weirdly, it had a bit of old-timiness about it. Which, by the way, those actors were... No.
We ain't talking about that, Matthew.
No, actors are actors. We're moving on from that. Just, it's like, they said a thing, we're moving on from that. Silly billies. But, to go back, as like the Queen of the Ring movie, go check out in cinemas. It's apparently very good. And Camille apparently has a much larger role in it than Timeless Toni Storm. You wouldn't know it. But yeah. Jeremy, they tried to hurt each other. They tried to hurt each other in ways that we could only really... Well, we watched, Jeremy. We watched the violence.
In ways that we've basically not seen since freaking ECW 1995. They wrapped tape around their hands, adhesive side out. And they put their hands in buckets. And inside the buckets were shards of broken glass. They freaking had broken glass taped to their hands, and they mullered each other.
Time, but that wasn't what got her all cut up. What got her cut up was she got dropped on her head on the steel steps, and I think she may have bladed a little too hard, and she realized she may have bladed a little too hard, Jeremy, because she had a face that showed that, oh dear, I think I may have bladed a little too hard.
Now, if I may add to this, Matty, and this will involve me swearing, but did you hear what Toni Storm said as the camera was moving towards her?
I believe it was the word...
Fuck. In that tone. Just, the camera was going towards her, and she just kind of went, oh, fuck.
He did a swear. He did it, everybody. He did a swear. He also said vagina.
I am quoting, therefore it's allowed. But there was a lot. Let's put it this way: this match is not for the squeamish. No. If you try and watch a blurred version of this, you might as well just do what they do in some anime shows, just make it a black screen or just put clouds over the top.
Oh, you know? I winced so many times. I really did. Like I said, I'm not a huge deathmatch guy. It's not my thing. Hasn't been the most brutal ECW matches I will probably skip over. But again, it felt right in a weird way, considering Timeless Toni Storm is the most I am a character going. And by the way, RJ City needs to have his flowers for this entire storyline. He's the guy that booked this, and you wouldn't think it. He also, Jeremy, he was the mind behind the early days of the Death Rider storyline. Also, would you believe it? RJ City Booker of the Year. You wouldn't think it. Anything else is in, I think he's a bit annoying, but his booking, but yeah, there's not really much that could be said. You pretty much covered all of it. If there was violence, they covered it.
If I may, I would like to acknowledge the fact that Mariah May from somewhere, I don't remember where at this point, randomly brought out a taser.
It was realsies, everybody. You could tell it was realsies.
And there was also a wonderful callback in this match as well, because once the blood has been pretty much everywhere, there's glass all over the place, there's all sorts happening. Toni then goes towards where the timekeeper's table is. And then she's searching around. I'm watching this show on headphones, so I hear this because my camera mic's on. And at some point, I hear her say in the distance, "Where is it?" or something to that effect. And then suddenly, there's a moment where they cut back to Mariah. They cut back to the ringside area. And suddenly, there is a table with a plinth. And there is the bloody shoe of Toni Storm that Mariah May stabbed her in the head with about just shy of a year ago now.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
May, June time, as it were. But yeah. It was very amusing. It was it was the end of the Owen Hart tournament.
Yeah, it was the literal women's finals of the Owen Hart tournament. So early summer.
Yeah, and as Harriet has put in the chat, the alternative Cinderella story of the shoe. Exactly right.
You won't.
Where is it?
You won't see Disney cover that. That was a deleted scene.
There you go. But and Toni was able to get a bit of a revenge, if you will, for that shoe incident from last year. And ultimately it ended with a giant Cactus Jack style pile driver through a table, which had the Hollywood ending plastered all over it, and then got the pinfall. It was just Toni just lying on top of Mariah, ultimately just as a heap on top of her, because the match had been that brutal. Then they pan out a little bit, and suddenly the screen and the lights start to change a bit, and then a message appears on the screen, Matty, which was...
I don't know. I was distracted by Phelps saying, "Disney, cover that, you cowards, and maybe I'll forgive you for the Owl House cancellation." Disney, why? Go on.
It said the end.
Yes, this is why this should have been poetically. I'm saying poetically a lot today, but to end a pay-per-view with literally the words "the end." Mm-hmm. That would have been a stroke of genius. Why?
Hey, look, hindsight is 2020.
He said
it really is.
Tony said that.
And yeah, he did. But ultimately, it's fair to say, upon reflection, and we'll get to the two remaining matches in a second, there were four matches looking back that could have headlined this show if it hadn't have been Moxley and Cope. This easily could have been one of them.
Yes.
And if there was ever a chance, again, I'm not genderizing here, but this arguably was probably one of the most anticipated matches of the whole show because of how long this had built up. It was easily one of the biggest matches. And heck, it being a women's match main eventing as well, make a bit of history at the same time. But this was a perfect opportunity. It's genuinely sad it didn't, but at the same time, you could have the counterpoint be, if it had been at the end of the show, after everything else that came before it, would the crowd have equally have been as tired? It's a what if. It's one of those what if questions. We'll never know.
I would counter that, Jeremy, with don't have 12 matches in a pay-per-view then.
Absolutely fair. A very fair counterpoint.
That's literally it. There was some matches here you could easily have put on a Dynamite. You know, Outrunners and the Hurt Syndicate, for instance.
But also, Matty, as you've alluded to, that thing of being able to have like the end at the end of the pay-per-view and just that visual, that's kind of almost a one-time thing. It's like, doing the first All In at Wembley. There were like just some first-time moment things there. And it was spectacular. Heck, last year's All In at London, where it was Danielson winning the belt. Like, it was like, if we're going to do this, it's got to be now. And it was a beautiful moment, regardless. So yeah, there are sometimes the stars align. The stars still aligned for this match. Just that little extra bit of, what if it was at the end? What if?
Absolutely.
But where they go next, heck knows, quite frankly.
I don't know.
Both of them.
I don't know. Do you know, I was thinking about this actually after the fact. I spent a good deal of it thinking about it today, actually, leading up to this. And the other route they could have done, because we're talking about the ending, but there was a beautiful bit of like full circleness with Mariah and Toni. Toni is draped over Mariah. And if you notice, when she comes to, Toni looks at Mariah, then puts her head right back on her bosom, which is what the pair of them were doing with one another in the lead up to Mariah turning on Toni. She looked at her, and she literally nestled herself there with the belt draped over the pair of them, signifying that basically, yeah, Toni won this, but both of them won this match.
Yeah.
And they did. I'm sorry. The pair of them were winners in my eyes. They could have easily, for whatever reason, they could have made this. They both lost. They both literally lost, and now they're going to take some time away. Because they hurt each other so badly they could not continue. Which sounds like, on paper, they go, well, then that's not a rubber match. But it also could be. It's literally like Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty at the Riverside, where they're literally both falling down the water well. There could not be a definitive winner. And ultimately it ends on both of them like falling. What we saw was the fall of both of these women. And then that's where you get the reset to their new feuds going forward. But I'm also happy.
They may be.
Yeah. So we could have easily, I'm going to say it again, poetically, you could have had it as a no-person draw, which people were going, yeah. But when you think about it as well, the way it ended, they could have both, they hurt each other so much they could have both collapsed, and that would have been it.
It ironically would have been quite an old school Hollywood ending.
Exactly. But having said that, I am happy. I think Toni was the right person to win this.
Agreed.
Ultimately, I think Maria was the person that you needed to conquer. I'm more worried for Maria than I am for Toni. Toni is like an indomitable character. She has found a niche, and literally, unless it gets stale, if it gets old, unless that happens, people are going to love her. People are absolutely going to. I love her. I think it's a fantastic act. Whereas, what are you going to do with Maria now?
I think she needs to be off TV for a bit.
Yes.
I think so. At least a couple of months. I'm thinking maybe a bit longer, given that Toni was away for 6 months?
You watch, she'll be back in 3 days.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
She'll be back tomorrow night.
But there are some directions you can go with. My bigger question, because there's a lot you can still do with Mariah. She could align with some people. Like, hypothetically, she could perhaps make that Vendetta duo with Deonna Purrazzo and oh my word, Taya Valkyrie. If she joined up with them, that could be a really fun trio.
Jeremy, do you want me to break your heart?
Oh, let me guess, they've broken up.
Yeah, Taya's now paired up with the Maximum Male Models and Johnny TV. And they don't even mention Deonna Purrazzo. Last time Deonna Purrazzo was around, she lost to Harley Cameron on, I think it was Collision. she's been one of Harley Cameron's winning streaks.
Okay, well, you know what? Then scrap that thought. But that was a thought I had in mind. All because I haven't seen this week's Collision. Are you freaking kidding me? So from there, Matty, we'll park that conversation for another day, if you will. But I think that's a good moment to move on to the next match, which was for the Intercontinental. No, that's not what it's called. Actually, the International title. I did it. The International title. Konosuke Takeshita defending against Kenny Omega. Now, this match, Matty.
Yes.
I was very hyped for this.
I would imagine so. I saw this as being, well, this is the moment where Jeremy would be hyped and would stay hyped. I take it you weren't ultimately hyped.
For the final 5 minutes, I was. So this is the thing. I went in thinking, we've seen Omega have a couple of matches. We saw the tag team match in Australia. Really fast-paced, really dynamic, everything like that. We saw him have a couple of matches on TV beforehand where, favoring the diverticulitis bits and bobs that had occurred to him. And I kind of thought, okay, he's been back in the ring for a bit now. Takeshita's going to be a tough opponent on his own, but I still expect this to be a lot more dynamic. But what we actually got was a really long match focused primarily more on the wrestling element, but also body part focus. With Takeshita really homing, on the diverticulitis fallout, I'll call it, of Kenny Omega. And that wasn't what I was expecting. And there were moments where you thought, okay, right, cool. Now we're going to get some, okay, we're back to that. All right, cool. And I feel like if it had maybe been about 10 minutes less of that, this might have gelled with me a bit more because it wasn't what I was expecting. Okay, I'll be the slightly selfish element here. It wasn't what I wanted. I still liked it. And looking back on it, really well done. Like, I say I cannot fault it. It's not what I wanted. But you know what I mean? In terms of the way it was put across, I thought done very well. Just wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, the other problem, I think, is this was the match they put on as a reset between two bloodbaths. And after the match, I literally forgot that this match happened between the two. I literally thought one bloodbath happened after the other. And that's because this match was okay. I think we're going to have another Takeshita and Omega match down the line, which they're going to absolutely blow the water with. I think this match was serviceable and was absolutely fine. And then I think it's more the fact that you're probably more disappointed because of the caliber of the talent involved.
Yes, but it wasn't because of again, I'm trying to think of a way to articulate this. It's like I said, what they did was really good. Yeah. It's not the really good I wanted on that night, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's hard to fully articulate, but yeah, this is 100% going to have another rematch because Kenny Omega won with a roll-up, not even the one-winged angel. Yeah.
I think the one thing that what we're getting at, because the chat's been responding to what you were saying about picking the body part, Kenny Omega's new thing is basically he's selling the diverticulitis. So every gut check, every gut blow, every stomach punch, he's now going to kill over and go, oh, my guts, because my guts exploded on me.
Which, to be fair, given Takeshita's obscene strength, is perfectly understandable. And Harriet, it's a very good shout. I did have that in a note, actually. But yeah, that was a very nice touch about the ring gear. You know what? We may come back to a couple of other points in the show as well. Because I'm just going to say it now. Swerve's entrance, please never have a live drummer unless they've actually got good in-ear monitors again. That's all I'm going to say about that.
That was slightly out of sync.
Slightly as being very kind.
I'm going to give you...
He was in time for 4 bars.
I'm going to give you a little, because Harriet will agree with me on this one. There was a moment in the Sailor Moon performance that...
Oh, wow, this is a tangent. Hang on, I'll buckle
No. It's only a slight one. We will go back to the wrestling. So there was a moment, and it was slowly building up as they were getting to the end of the show, where their performance wasn't matching up with the subtitles. Like, the subtitles would pop up about 5 seconds before they spoke, or something like that. Where
they got out of sync. Interesting.
They got out of sync. And then by the time they got around to, slight spoilers, but I think people were expecting it, when they went to sing Moonlight Denetsu, they were so out of sync that they could not match up with the backing song or the subtitles. And the actor who's playing Uzagi literally had to wave it off. Went, no. Can you stop everything, please? Can you stop it all? Because we can do better than this. And they performed brilliantly after that. They restarted VT. The subtitles were literally in sync with them. And they performed that second go at Moonlight Denetsu fantastically. Go back to this guy, and yeah, you're right. He was absolutely not in sync with the music whatsoever, and you could tell. You could absolutely tell.
Yeah, and I won't talk about this too much because there's a lot of musicality which I was noticing, but it was almost like it came across to me like he was trying to live drum it, but it felt like he was hearing it from the speakers in the arena and not through an actual in-ear monitor feed, which is why it sounded a bit out of sync and whatnot. And it was like a 4-bar period, I think, where he was in, and then he tried to do a funky fill. And it's like, no, don't, kind of thing. But yeah, to echo what Felf was just said in the chat, mad respect to the Sailor Moon crew there, especially because that's probably the big song. If you're gonna go, hang on, time out.
Yeah,
that's the one to do it with.
And you knew it wasn't part of the act because they literally just brought. But she did it in character as well. So as Uzagi, she did it in character. Says, look, we're dirt. We can do this, and we can do this better. You just be with us, support us. And they did it, and they did it fantastically. So yeah, but the fact is that Sailor Moon thing, the fact of the matter is they're doing this to the music, but also doing it in time with the live subtitles that are being played in the background behind them. And it's all got to be done in perfect synchronicity. And that is what I've got mad respect for the entirety of that performance.
Sorry,
anyway,
I've now just got a visual from Felf here of Swerve Song being performed on a flute, and I can't unthink this. For some reason, it's too wild. But
were you expecting more performers to turn up for that, though? Because I was expecting more musicians to turn up.
I think most of them were sat at ringside ready to watch the match, including, what was her name? Leslie
Thomas. You musicians, not comedians.
No, I know that, but yeah, anyone, performers, just in general.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people were sat at ringside for that. But anyway, we digress. But so yeah, Omega Takeshita, really good for what it was on the night. Wasn't what I personally was hoping it would be on that night. But any additional thoughts from you, Matty, before we move on to the final match to discuss, because we've already talked about the main event?
I think the match was perfectly all right. I enjoyed it for what it was. They used it as a setup between two bloodbaths, and you shouldn't because of the caliber involved. And I think a much better match is going to be performed by the pair of them down the line, quite frankly. And that's what I've got to say about it.
There you go. So that brings us on to the final match to discuss, that being the steel cage match between Essex's, I can't even say that, I'm not going to try, between England's own Will Ospreay and Aussie's oi 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 Kyle Fletcher. This match, Matty, this was always going to be a little bit hard-hitting, going to be a little bit brutal.
I thought it was just going to be witty banter.
I mean, at this point, it probably was. You can imagine what they were like in the ring. But the visual of these two coming out, like Kyle Fletcher comes out, he is ripped to shreds in terms of how lean he is and how amazingly in shape he is and whatnot. He climbs to the top of the cage, nearly has a little slip, and the audience catch it, and you just see him give this look of...
Can I just say the words? Can I just say the words right now? Dream twink. Let's move on.
There we go. So he gets to the top of the cage, and he's just sitting in the corner on top of this cage. Ospreay comes out. He's got like a big dubstep thing going on beforehand, and I literally thought, don't change your music. Don't do the Omega thing of changing the music that everyone wants to hear. Much as we love the Nobu Uematsu composition, it's a great song. I want to hear the other song, kind of thing. But no, then his music kicks in. The crowd inside that arena, it's not called a Staples Center, the Crypto.What's-It Arena, they're all going wild. Ospreay is in a serious game face. He climbs to the opposite corner of the cage. And then as the moment where everyone's got to shout, Ospreay comes in, he just points to the crowd, like almost like that with his arms out. And everyone just shouting it. And that cinematic visual beauty that was the camera angle, I think, behind Fletcher, of him plugging his ears with his fingers as they're doing it, and Ospreay being on the opposite end of the cage. Oh, just cinema.
That was that. Despite the kayfabe, we hate each other. You know this is because these two, like literally said, we're going to put on a performance.
Oh, and
like it's Kyle Fletcher and blinking Will Ospreay, like mates eternal. You could tell with the banter.
Mate, put it this way, I would argue they probably had 3 matches worth of content in this one match. Because, you know,
3 entirely different matches in one match.
Basically, which I will say very arguably too much, but I was enthralled by the entire thing. This was nuts. The screwdriver got involved. Mark Davis ultimately got into the cage, thus nullifying the whole idea no one else could get in the cage. He brought in a barbed wire bat and a bunch of thumbtacks and stuff. And arguably, now look, they did a Spanish fly. I'm jumping all over, but they did a Spanish fly from the top of the cage. There was like screwdriver shots going on all over the place, the head and the stomach.
And they were legit stabbing one another with that thing as well. They weren't protecting each other. Those were legit shots to the guts and the head.
Friendly banter. And, you know, but I think the most painful moment of the match was when the thumbtacks were on the ground. And I think Fletcher tried to set Ospreay up for a move, but then Ospreay reverses it, picks him up, and gets him into the Styles Clash position. And then proceeds to take a few steps forward. He is in front of said drawing pin / thumbtacks. He then does the Styles Clash, and the front of Kyle Fletcher's body is just covered in drawing pins, including his nether regions.
I was about to say, because I saw exactly where he landed, I was staring in that area, and sure enough, and we know he wasn't wearing a cup because he was playing around with that thing during the match as well. Ow.
This match it's one of those matches where you can't really recap what happened because so much happened, but we were getting kickouts with so many different signature maneuvers, so many massive moves. But ultimately, to sort of jump towards the end, after the whole Mark Davis stuff and he got booted out, the cage was locked up again. Both of them end up at the top of the cage, sitting on the truss at the top. Ospreay's got a screwdriver in his mouth like he's literally about to murder someone in East London. And he goes to Kyle Fletcher. Fletcher has that moment of, oh, crap. And then Ospreay just grabs a screwdriver and just dinks him in the head a bunch of times. And then proceeds to throw the screwdriver down, which I'm pretty sure bounced into the audience. So that was a moment. And then Ospreay then decides to stand up on top of the truss. And he positions Kyle Fletcher also somewhat standing. And you're kind of thinking now, I'm going to hold my breath. What crazy BS are you about to do? The crazy BS in question was a Spanish fly flip off the top of the cage, Ospreay landing properly on his hip. And you could tell instantly he was like, oh, shit, kind of thing.
Yeah, and remember that the tacks were there as well.
Yep. Oh, well, no, Matty, they broke his fall. And
friendly banter.
And I think Kyle Fletcher kicked out of that. And then Ospreay got up, hit a Stormbreaker, if I remember correctly, then proceeded to set up for the Hidden Blade, his massive elbow to the face finisher. And then Kyle's just on his knees, and he just starts shouting, I hate you! I'm quoting now. I hate you! I fucking hate you! And then just wallop in the face. I quoted, it's fine. And he just gets clobbered in the face, and then he gets pinned. This, Matty, was a ridiculous spectacle. It is genuinely... It's I can't say much else. Just freaking nuts. Was there too much in it? Probably. Did I still enjoy the whole damn thing? Yes. Yes, I bloomin' well did. Matty, anything else to add, or just generally your thoughts on this? Because this was mental.
So a mild complaint I have with this is like you literally had 2 bloodbaths in one show, and if you're going to have too much of that same kind of match, it ultimately desensitizes you because you're expecting it. Like I said about the other stuff, though, like literally in these pay-per-views, we must have witnessed an attempted murder like nearly every show now. Like literally every pay-per-view, there's been nearly a murder, Jeremy, a murder.
If on your AEW bingo card for this show you had near murder, you may check that box.
And I think that there's something to be said with, yes, that was incredible. Yes, they saw what the ladies were doing early, went, we need to top that. Holy crap. And they did. They certainly tried. There's nothing that you said that I can't disagree with. I cannot stand death matches. I cannot stand hardcore when it's like we are purposely hurting each other. Like they legit stabbed one another. There was nothing protecting them. They literally did stab one another with that screwdriver. They could have done lasting harm to one another. And their mates, the kayfabe not aside, the reason why the pair of them are there, having the belter of the matches they are, is because they genuinely love each other. And yet, Jeremy, despite everything, I freaking loved this match.
Yeah.
I really did. Please don't kill each other again too soon. Please. Do it in about a year or so's time. Don't do it in about, 5 days. Don't do it. Lick your wounds first.
But Matty, of everything that happened in this match, of all the absurd moves they did, arguably the way too much they did, there was a moment in this match where I did crack up quite a bit. It was after, I think it was after the Spanish Fly. And they've both landed in a heap. Ospreay's like reached over to cover him. It's 1, 2, kick out. And I think it was Don Callis on commentary or someone just said, should have hooked the leg. To get a better pinfall. I cracked at that point.
Don Callis is such an asset to these matches. I think him on commentary during these have been great. I love him as a manager because he literally is a coward. He really is. Like, he will get his guys to do unspeakable things on his behalf. And he's always been like this. He's been like this since the days of the Jackal. He's been like this since he was Cyrus the Virus. There's some old LinkedIn names from the past, from like 30 years ago.
References for you.
Like, he's been incredibly great when he will do things like, oh, I'm going to beat you up now. Now, he's an old trained wrestler himself, but he's not playing the part of a wrestler. He's playing the part of a crappy manager. And when he's going around doing these little doobie, scrappy-doo punches to people when the ref's not looking, he's hurting himself. Because he's not a wrestler. He's a manager. So he's hurting his hands on the guy. It's like, oh, my God, I've hurt my hand. It's like, yeah, because you just smacked someone, you silly boy. And then
I think that happened during the Omega Takeshita match where he punches Omega a bunch of times and you suddenly go, ah!
Now, he hasn't done this an awful lot, but when he was one of the main commentators on New Japan, whenever one of the bad guys would threaten him, he would literally, like, audibly go, ah! at them. Like, literally, or will try and climb up the thing because, again, the guy is an absolute coward. And this is what I like about him. He adds such a thing to each of these Don Callis moments. Whenever there's a Don Callis match, he's involved in the commentary, and I think he's a strong asset to the company. So may long his reign continue. With that being said, please do something with the talent pool he's got that isn't Kyle Fletcher, because I want to see the murder machines actually do something.
I think now that we've got a bit of a reset with like the AEW pantheon in general, this is the time for things to kind of be put in motion for that with a lot of people. Like we mentioned Toni and Mariah. We've mentioned what about the international title? Where do things go next for the world title? Or who more specifically up potentially after April? Like there's a lot of places where things need to be clarified, which hopefully assuming you have nothing else further to add, Matty, which please do in just a second, will lead us on to what the heck may happen on Dynamite this week. Because if this pay-per-view's done anything, it's made me already ultra excited to see Dynamite. And I've been loving the television for, like I say, the good 3 or 4 months now. It's been so good.
Quote Dynamite. We do stress Dynamite. The Dynamites have been on form as of late.
Collision's been really solid as well, to be fair.
To be fair, but I think with the collisions, it is stuff that if you miss it, it isn't such a big thing. But if you want to, if you got time to kill and you want to see some great work rate wrestling, Collision's a great show to watch.
If you want to know that Taya Valkyrie is now aligned with the MXM and what's it, then you need to watch Collision because Muggins here didn't know. But
if you want to see the amazing winning streak of Harley Cameron, go to Collision. And I called it, Jeremy.
Yeah. But sorry, Matty, any more thoughts on that particular match there, the steel cage that you wanted to add?
No, that is it. I legitimately love this. I hope the pair of them have a bit of a break from one another now, like Mariah and Toni. I'm like you. I'm looking forward to Dynamite and to see where they progress now that I'm going to say again, I think Revolution is a great endpoint for storylines. And now it's a matter of where do we go from here? What is Dynasty going to bring to us? Because also, I love that Triller have bundled Revolution and Dynasty together. I love that they're doing these as bundles on actually quite a good price as well. I paid only £25 for 2 pay-per-views.
That sounds about right, yeah.
So that was really, really good. So I'm looking forward to Dynamite. I mean, am I fully enamored with the weekly product in and out? No. But I always maintain that at least the pay-per-views on AEW have always been incredible. And I think Revolution...
massive value for money.
Oh, for sure. And I think that they continued the grand tradition here. So long may it continue. I just hope that Toni learns something about match structure and plot and placement, because that is one of the weak points here. And I think Revolution could have been 100% a perfect show had they put the matches on in a different order. And I will rain down on this till the cows come home. Every single one. They're let down by their pacing.
We've both said that. Either way.
You said it. I've said it. Harry said it.
Thumbs up show.
Yep.
But kind of more... Oh, there you go. There's a thumb. But more towards probably like a diagonal thumbs up. Kind of not a perfect thumbs up, but pretty much a thumbs up, as it were.
An Orange Cassidy thumbs up.
There you go. A lazy thumbs up. But... So the other thing I wanted to make mention of, and it's a bit of a side point, but I figured I'd randomly mention it. A big thing going into this show, I say a big thing, it's more just like a general note, was the fact that this show was the first one available on Amazon Prime. Now, interestingly, the 0 hour is on there. And I discovered this, so I suddenly thought, it'll just be the pay-per-view, and it turns out 0 hour is on there as well. So I did check out about the opening 10 minutes of preamble, like from Renee and other people and such, just to kind of gauge what the video quality was like. It looked pretty damn good, to be fair, and sort of compared to the Triller feed, it has made me think, you know what? I might give a show for Amazon Prime a chance. But the thing about Triller, like I was saying to you off air a day or two ago, is all my purchase history is on Triller for AEW, and I also get a bit of a benefit for being part of the AEW Plus subscription. So...
Part of the bundle for Revolution and Dynasty, you also get Revolution 2024 for free.
There you go.
So if you were getting into AEW, you effectively paid for 3 pay-per-views. So that is a hell of a deal. But I agree with you.
That was Sting's retirement match. I just quickly looked up what was on the show last year. That was Sting's retirement match, which that match in itself was freaking insane.
That was literally the first time you and me did a podcast together with nobody else. It was great times.
There you go. It's like
I made notes on paper.
But I think on that note, folks, we're now going to start to bring things to a close. But Matty, any other general notes from the pay-per-view as a whole that you wanted to make mention of? Any other random tidbits? Anything probably that we should make note of that we haven't already that you could think of?
I think we should stop. I tend to rally home this little rant each and every time we do one of these. Just get rid of the gender divide and a main event is a main event, no matter what your gender is. I'm just going to leave
100%.
it at that.
Yep, 100%. So in that case then, folks, thank you very much for joining us. But before we go, I did mention at the start of the show that we would make mention of it again. So if you're interested in catching some more BunkaMania content, we're planning to do some live streams over the next month or so leading up to WrestleMania, because WWE is embarking on a European tour, so which means they're going to be airing SmackDown and Raw broadcasts live as they happen in their local time zone to where the event is taking place. And I believe that begins this Friday, the 14th, from 6:45 p.m. I believe Decadane is going to be on hand to do a sort of live reaction to SmackDown. So if you're planning to watch that show, you can give that a watch with him if you want to. And obviously you can catch the VOD after the fact, so you can sync them up and whatnot, have a grand old time. But those are the dates confirmed currently for some live reactions to some upcoming WWE programming. So if you want to join us, you can do that if you want to. But in terms of us, no doubt there'll be another WWE pay-per-view review coming very soon. That pay-per-view being the small little 2-day event known as WrestleMania. So, you can look forward to that at the beginning of April, I think it is. I haven't looked at the date off the top of my head.
We're going to be so tired. Also, it's happening during a convention for 2 of our numbers. So maybe 3 of our numbers. Are you doing Kokoro? No. So 2 of our numbers are going to be watching it at Kokoro. And you and me will probably watch it together, but we will see on that
There
one.
you go. We will see how it goes. Either way, at some point down the line, there will be a WrestleMania review and whatnot coming. And no doubt some other bits and bobs going as well. So from myself, Jeremy, from Matty, thank you so much for joining us. Harriet, shout out to you for being the mod in the chat tonight. Very much appreciated. Thank you, folks, for joining us. We've been BunkaMania Wrestling. Until next time, take care, love each other, be kind to each other, and keep enjoying wrestling. Speak to you soon, folks. Bye!